Here I will talk about ReactJS Basics. So you will mainly see how ReactJS works. We will talk about your prerequisites, like what you already know. If you have no basics in JavaScript, then I would recommend to actually learn JavaScript basics and then come to ReactJS. But we will talk about this in our next slide. So let's see how we can actually build our first apps using ReactJS and what is the main concept and topics that we need to be actually understand for React Basics. And for the more details of ReactJS Basics or more fundamentals, you will actually learn later in other videos. So look at this one. First one, we need to talk about ReactJS, the requirements. That means what you actually know or what you should know before you start ReactJS. So we need some previous knowledge about JavaScript, knowledge like basic of JavaScript. So basic means not everything from JavaScript, it mainly mean JavaScript functions. So in JavaScript we know that we have two kinds of function, arrow function and a normal function. So the arrow function we have a lot of use in ReactJS, the arrow function, also the normal function. You also need to know about the JavaScript class constructor, how class is working in JavaScript, the callback concept, little bit of promise concept, also the variables in JavaScript, how to use different kinds of variables, objects in JavaScript, also how you call different kinds of function parameters and how you use the arguments, spread parameters, rest parameters. So this kind of thing you need to know. And this is a few basic things, but if you have no knowledge of JavaScript and if you don't still know anything in JavaScript, I think it will take just few minutes to just visit the W3 School website, or in the down in this video I will also give some links so you can just learn about this kind of thing. And then you should actually also learn a little bit about Npm. So normally in React website or most of the website you will see that they are developing ReactJS using something called Yarn. So Yarn is something similar to Npm, but Npm is more useful in this case, because if you already know Npm, because a lot of Node.js developer or JavaScript developer, they use Npm in many packages. Not Yarn is not so much famous, but for React they also use this. So that's why I write Npm, but it depends on you. So if you already know Node.js or Npm, that's a good news, because then you can easily actually use them. And if you don't know, then please just first know about what is Npm. It is like a just some kind of package management system. So you can actually use this Npm package, and if you install this in your computer, then a lot of nice thing will come back. And then we need to also know about the little bit of concept of front end and back end, like what is front end, what is back end, or what is client, what is server. So this kind of thing, this is like a theoretical concept. And shortly we can say, okay, the front end is like you are designing something and what you will show to the user, the customer, and you are making actually the user interface in the front end. So UI, that means user interface, you will actually display this to the customers. That is our first concept. And the back end means like maybe you are building something and the behind of the customer. So it's not, you are not displaying anything as a interface. This will be in the behind. So that is a back end concept, like with a database or something. So in this case we don't need them, we just need front end concept for ReactJS. And we also need to know you also need to know a little bit about what is modules. But if you don't know modules, that's okay, still okay, because we'll talk about components in React, and that is actually the similar kind of concept, so you will learn here. So but you need to know JavaScript, of course, the basic of JavaScript. If you don't know Npm, then you will now see how we will use Npm, and then front end and interface. So this kind of thing we'll discuss, but basic JavaScript knowledge you must know. Okay, then let's see that what exactly why we need React. In shortly, we need to find out the questions. So I'll give you maybe 5 or 10 seconds to actually think of it, why we need ReactJS. And then you need to actually Google it or just search it in online. There will be a lot of nice articles, nice documentation why we need ReactJS. Maybe another day I can discuss it more details on this. But what I find shortly from my experience, ReactJS is something for this kind of thing, what I write here, like for reusability. That means if you have some code, you write some code and you want to use it in another project. So you have one project, maybe you want to use in another project, maybe in different kinds of project which is not yet React, but still you can use. So it's like a library, because React.js is mainly a library. It's not any languages or any kind of big framework, but it's a library. Some people say it's also a framework because it has a lot of nice structure, so they have debate. But the main thing of React.js is because why we need React.js, because you write some code and you can actually reuse it in several projects. You don't have to write the same code or same functionality. And inside React.js, after you use React.js, they have a lot of new files, libraries, so you can actually use them. So React is also very powerful UI library. That means it is more powerful than other library they have, and it has a lot of features, nice features. So like if you want to make a chat application, or if you want to make something stateless, like normally whatever you do, it's stateless, but if you want to count and take the states of some transaction of data, then you can actually use them. And it's also component driven development. So component driven development is actually the same thing what we talked about here, ES modules, almost same thing, but in React everything is a component. So component, we'll talk about component, what is components, and we'll see how to create them. But shortly, component is a part. So just think of something, you are going to make some big buildings, and in the buildings what you need bricks, you need sand, you need land. So everything is a component, but everything is doing different parts. If you think of something like you are making a website, and in the website you have footer, header, left side, menu side, you have different buttons, you have a form, you have contact form, you have sometimes pictures. So everything could be a component, and everything is separatable. You can actually separate them, you can create them, and then you can reuse them. So if you make one component, maybe it's just displaying you one header or top menus of some website, and later you make another project, you just copy this component and import it, and then it will actually work without anything you have to do. So this is a good thing from React.js, and that's why it's so popular. And it's also very fast. React is very fast than other libraries. It's also lightweight. So there are a lot of reasons, a lot of causes why you should use React.js, but this is the basic concept or basic things as I remember, but there will be more. You can actually read articles, find out before you start React. It's a good idea to actually think of yourself, why I need React, and why not maybe another one. Okay, and then let's talk about also something that's also would be a little bit hot topics, because in most of if you understand React.js, then there is a lot of chance to get a job, because there is a lot of front-end developer or front-end engineering jobs, they must need React.js. And you will find also a lot of jobs calling like React.js developer, or sometimes they said okay, front-end developers, but who must know React.js, or this kind of thing. And as this is very popular, and that means a lot of jobs in the market, so you can actually get a lot of jobs if you understand React nicely, clearly. So that will be actually a good chance to change your career. So if you are coming from different career perspectives, not from the IT or not from the computer science, that is still okay, because if you learn React, so this is a new concept even for IT and computer science students, because this is not something they learn in the university. This is something programming related. So you came as here to learn web development, and you can actually be familiar with something like this. You get a lot of experience, and this is a nice experience. So you can make some powerful user interface that could be useful. And also one interesting thing, React.js is actually made by Facebook. So in 2013 probably they built up this they said okay, you can make you can use React.js, but before that they actually started React.js themselves. So this is actually made by Facebook, and if you already use Facebook, so you know that how powerful this is. And by React.js you can actually make something like this or more powerful. So this is also one cause you can think of, like okay, why I need React. Okay, let's see that what we are going to learn quickly, because we don't want to actually talk everything from React. So this is a basic of short video, and we'll actually try to discuss main common basic thing from React. Like first we'll see how to install React for the first time. So I will use npm package called create react app. So this is a very nice one. So if you install by this one, you actually have all the basic components or basic things you needed for the first React apps. Even you can see something in the browser quickly as like a website, and then we'll talk about JSX. So JSX is something actually mixed of JavaScript and HTML. You can learn more details on the Google, but the main thing is in shortly, this is actually JSX is some kind of syntax or something how we write our code inside React.js. So we are actually mixing JavaScript and HTML together. And then you will see something a little bit different that must be in the JSX concept, like class name. You cannot write class that we write in the HTML, but you can write class name here, and tag, and also like some statement, like how you display some JavaScript statement in a curly bracket. So all these things we will discuss. Let's make it short, and then we'll talk about state, props, and also the components, what kind of components React has. As I already talked my previous slide that this is component driven, so we must understand the component after JSX, and then different kinds of states, the props. So state and props, they are something related to the data, and then we'll also see like how React is actually reacting with every event that user is doing, like user clicking something, changing something, and how the event is actually showing data with this one. So I will use Visual Studio Code. You can use any other software, but I will use Visual Studio Code. So this is the editor, and this editor will, when you open this, you see something like this. So there I will actually create something React.js apps I will use here, and then I will see what happens. So in this case, maybe I will just open my terminal. You can open your terminal Visual Studio like this. You can actually go and visit and open some folder. So in this case, I will actually open a new folder. Open a folder. So here in my computer, I have something for my another class. Maybe I will actually open something here. So I'll open a new folder. So inside documents, I will use a new folder. So I am using Linux operating system. If you have Windows, you can just normally open one folder. So I can say okay, React Basic. So you can give any name and then press OK. Then they open it, and after they open it, we can now see what is inside this one. So after I open the folder is empty. There is nothing. You can see the Visual Studio, nothing is there, so it's very empty. And then now you can actually install or do something with React.js. So as I am using a Linux operating system, I can actually use this terminal to install React.js, or I can directly use it from the terminal I have. So there's two ways I can do this. You see, this is another terminal I have, and this terminal I can also use. So if I write down here, let me go inside the folder. I just create. It's called cd documents. Probably okay, I'm in the wrong one, so I'll just write down why I am. Okay, so this is I will shortly write to. So in the ls, I am now in the ls. From ls I have to go cd documents, and from there I am inside okay, React.js in the home. So I create this in the home. Okay, so then I should actually right click here and open the terminal. That will be better. Yeah, so this is my terminal. So we'll now see that I'll close another terminal, that I have another terminal, so I don't need this. If you don't have terminal like this, if you have maybe Windows, so you have PowerShell, and in the PowerShell you can if you install already GitHub, then you can right click and open Git bash, and then do the same thing. If you don't have Git bash, then you can also open from here. So let's try maybe from here, maybe it will be easy. So I'll close the terminal. From terminal you can do this also, but here we can do. So there I already have one bash, so I don't need. You see now I have bash, but you will see PowerShell. If you open this, let's extend it. Here we will now install something. So we'll write down like how you install first you React apps. So for this you need Node.js. So you can write Node.js website, and from there you can download the most user recommended version. You download this, and after, so if you have Windows, it's very easy. You can install it from Linux. There is some command they have. You can use this command and install Node.js. So with Node.js you already have npm packages. Now let me use the npm. So I already have npm. If you don't have, you can check it like, do you have npm or not. So you can write npm -v and then see the version number. So in my case 6.13.4 when I'm writing this one. And if you have different versions, so maybe I will just open my terminal quickly. So again write npm install create react app. Yeah, so without any dot. Why? Because then globally they will install the software create react apps for me, and if they install for me, then in this terminal or this terminal, whatever terminal you open it, you can again write down create react app and then check their version number, and then you see that they're writing something. For example, okay, so we should see, yeah, my comment is probably the wrong comment I write down. Probably I need to write create react apps -- version. Yeah, so because sometimes you have to write -v, sometimes you have to write version -version, because in this case -v is not working because it's actually for Node.js npm the -v, but for another apps like create react apps they're actually using -version, this keyword as a command, and then you see 3.3 is installed. So this way I install, but sometimes people, if you don't like to install this npm packages in your computer, then that is different. Then you can just write the full thing what I write in at the beginning, but without the dot, with a name. So then they will install something for you. But now I install this one, and why I did this, because now if you look into that part, maybe I'll just first clear the information here. Okay, now it's up. Now after you install create react apps, you need to write down again create, like any folder you have in your computer, just write create react apps, then write down the name of the software you want to install. So let me write down React Basic. This is the app's name. So this is also my folder where I am now already, and let's see what happens. Now they're creating a folder, but the thing is I am installing, I already have a folder create basics apps, and inside there I am creating create basic. So 2 times it's happening because create react apps is actually install something. So I'll just cancel it in this case, because I want to show you that what I just said few minutes ago. So you want to maybe not install, when you can do like this, whenever you have folder like all your react apps, you can write okay React.js apps, and then there will be many apps like to-do list, maybe Facebook website like social network. Then you should actually write like a name every time, and they will create everything in one folder. But if you say okay, this name I will use create react apps, but though no new folder I needed, in this case you have to actually, let's remove this first. Now it's empty. Now you want to install something, and you will use this one. So what you will use, a dot, not a name. So then they will take this name create basic, react basic, and then open it. But yeah, let me see it maybe in a different way. So what we will do, maybe I will open a folder here, and that will be my first app. So this is the folder, and then what I will do, I will go inside this folder, my first apps, and then here you can easily install with a dot. Okay, so the thing is name cannot no longer contain capital letter. Okay, so in this case I have a capital letter in the name, so that's the problem. So I need to actually again go back here. Yeah, make everything a small letter. So this is very funny problem. Let me write apps. Okay, so I cannot use camel case or anything. I can just write everything in a small letter, rename, and then if I now press like the same command, create react apps dot, and then yeah, now it's installing correctly. Okay, so when it's installing, we can just see that what is coming inside. So you see first packet.json is coming. We can open this one. Still there is not a lot of data. It will come, so it will take few minutes. And then we will now talk about React.js here. So we'll actually talk about JSX, this part, and which is mixed of JavaScript and HTML. So we'll see that how it works. Okay, so it will take a little bit time. And you can click always here in the new terminal, and then from there, so installation is happening in the other side. So I can, because now if you look into this one, I am now in the, my root folder is React Basic Apps. This is the name, but now I should actually go inside my first app if I want to do anything with the command line. So let's write down cd, because you see my path is React Basic, but I want to go inside my first or whatever, just press tab and then it will come, and then I am here. So there I will actually write down whatever I need to write, and then there is two terminal now. So terminal 1 or the bash one, I will just open it, close it. So there I will maybe write something. Now let's go inside this one. What you have, node modules, public folder, src, git ignore. So this is all basic settings come from React.js library. You can first also visit the React website, React.js. So React, yeah, JS folder, not logo. You can React.js. So this is the official website from React.js, and if you go there and you will see that okay, how they are doing something, and they're first talking about JSX editor, live editor. So you can also understand a little bit about from here also about JS editor if you want to learn, and then go down. Let's come back to our files and then see my first tabs, node modules, public, src, git ignore, public, log, packet.json. This is one folder. So this is my one apps made in React. If I have another apps, I can create a new folder and then go inside the folder and then write create React apps, or I can just come into open this one and do this one. So you have to be remember all the times that are you in the right path or in the wrong path. So I am now in React Basic, my first apps, this part. So if I want to start React.js, so let's open the and then see which one is the first line that will tell you to start React.js. So we already know that if you already know npm or node.js, then you know that every script started with packet.json. They have some script inside, and inside that script there is a start. That means how you start something. So in this case, if you write npm start, they'll start the React script for you, and there is a lot of configuration inside, and then you can see it. So let's write it here, npm start, comparing to this one, line 15, and I write here, give enter. So you see it is running in now localhost 3000. So you React app, React.js apps is running, and it's already showing you something. So it's already your first apps in React.js, but you did not write any HTML, anything, but it's coming from the basic file they have, basic JSX file. So they have one file, and from that file is coming. We'll talk about and change this information first, and then look into this one. So you have a start React script JS, and it's already running. So don't stop this npm until you see, when you see npm, don't stop this, because it's now running everything, and you don't have to do anything here. Just close packet.json. Now look what file we have inside the React.js apps. First thing, we have node modules. The node modules you already know. That means you have many dependencies, npm packages, and everything is installed here from packet.json. And then packet.log file, which is getting the meta files and the information from your computer, and also every time you install, so this kind of data. And then we have a git ignore. So this is also from React. So React is saying if you use GitHub website, and then you have to actually ignore this kind of file, so they will not upload this file. If you have more files that should be ignorable, you can actually add this here. And if you don't know Git Ignore, maybe you can actually learn about this or see another video. Now look at this one. There is some readme file, so this is also from React.js. So after you upload in GitHub, then you will see this file also. So we don't need actually readme file to understand now Git Ignore other things. We need to know about first thing is source. So you see there is a folder, and you cannot, this is a very mandatory folder, it's called source folder, src for source. You open this one and there are many files. So we'll first try to learn about our first components, built-in components after you install React.js. So they have a built-in components called app.js. Let's open this one. So capital letter apps.js, this is the first source component. You can see some file and some data here, and there is a lot of things, but you don't need to understand everything. First you need to see that okay, they have import something, that means they are actually adding something. So if you already know about Node.js, you know that they have they use require to import something. In this case, React will use the word import to import something from another file, adding something. So in this case, they are adding a .logo slash logo.hbc file. So where is this file? It should be in the source folder. So you see it's in the source folder, that's why they write dot slash, and the file name is logo.hbc. So this is a file. You can still go up and you see this could be this file. I can inspect it and then show you. So this is header, inside header, yeah, this is actually this file svg. So you see this is file is rolling and it's coming from them. So this is actually a nice file they have. Let's keep this file, and then let's go to the next information, that where is coming edit src app.js and save to reload and learn React. So this is coming from basically from React website. So let's first change this one and then let's understand a little bit. So what we see here, two files, two line is coming as import. We will also learn them how to import them. Now see, a function is started and the name of the function is app, and A is capital letter, because most of the things, most of the components in React you have to write in capital letter. It's the recommended way, but if you write a small letter it will also work, but this will sometimes make some confusion. So the recommended way is writing apps in capital letter. And then you see the return option. So in React the return is little bit different. So first thing we'll write here, change this line. So you can when you inspect it, and let's see what it looks like. After I inspect, I see here also the information. So if I change or remove it here and click any place, you see this is gone. And then if I also change this part, so it's also gone from here. So you can edit here to check something like what you want to change. Let's write here some messages from ourselves and then see what happens. So this is inside a paragraph. You see P for paragraph from HTML, and then remove this one. Click here and then write down, welcome to my first React app, and then save it. Just this information, and there is anchor also. You can go down. So anchor is not necessary. You can remove it. So they are directly giving the information about React website. So you can reduce this. You can remove it, and then let's make this little bit lightweight, our website. So save it. So look at there. You have a return, then you have a div. So everything is looks like HTML, but something is a little bit different for you, like curly bracket. It's not coming from any template engine, it's a React thing. So everything after you import any function or file, here they import the logo and then they put into image source by curly bracket, and then you see there they write here class name. But in HTML what we write? We normally write class, but in React you cannot write class, because class is a reserved word in JavaScript in HTML, so they cannot actually take this one. And then we have to write class name in this one, but most of the things, most of the other HTML attribute is same, so you have to write like alt, and any other HTML attribute you can write style and anything. Now let's look into our apps how it looks like. So if I just refresh, and you see now I see welcome to my first React apps. So the message is just changed. Now if you don't like this scrolling picture, it looks nice, but if you don't like because it's from React, just think of it where it is. So I can see it here. There is an image and source. A logo is coming from React.js. So if I remove this line, that's gone. So let's go quickly again. It's gone, and you don't need to refresh because React is always refreshing for you. Yeah, sometimes they makes problem, then you need to find out again. So then I see, okay, welcome to my first React apps, and then I see this is in a something called header. So actually this header class name app header, this is actually something they have some design, and this design if you remove, then it will not work. Like here, if you remove app and app header, all they are coming from this CSS, and this is actually this CSS. So by mistake, if you don't remove it, then the color and design it would be totally different, but it's okay, still okay. You can actually still write your code in your own way without any problem. Now let's see that I have this one, and you see after I remove the logo, this import is changed. So you don't need this extra word if you remove it. So let's remove it, and then so this is something from React, and this line is also from React. So we are trying to make it short and then see what is happening. But let's before we do anything, after this import line, we create our first JSX information like JSX. If you go to again the slide, so we said like we'll talk about class name, close tag, one JS statement. So let's look into this part. So class names, that means this one. If you write here class, so what is this class actually? Inside your CSS there is a name of the class. So the CSS means app.css from React.js. If you go there, and they have a word called app, so it's putting the text aligned to center. This is they are doing. Now if you write it class, so basically in HTML when you write class, is just go to CSS and then take the class. But what happens in this case? See, if I put my mouse here and then I just refresh, so text is still in the center, but probably it should actually not work in this case. Okay, it's still working, but it should not. Maybe there are some error in the console log. We can see warning, invalid Dom property class. Did you mean class name? So you see this Dom property from CSS, from HTML attribute class, but from CSS is they are calling this, they are not understand this. So there is a error is coming, but still it's running. So fix this error. If you again write down class name, then they understand, okay, class name means from CSS you just call a class, and then they are using this one. So if I refresh this now, so this is another message. This is, we don't need this message now, and but there is no error now, so this is fixed. That means you cannot write actually class for JSS, because as we said, the JSX in React means HTML and JavaScript mix, and they have some rules, some standard you need to follow. And if you put your mouse, you see here JSX attribute. So JSX is some new kind of thing that made by React.js. They are using class name, they are not using class. But if you write class, it still is working, but it will make some more problem in future. So don't write class. And the second thing we need to see here, after we see about class name and JSX, then we need to also see like, okay, the tag. Look at this tag, you div started, you div finished. That's perfect. This is a header started, header finished. Still it's HTML. But whatever you write like a components, so we'll talk about different components in React. If you see that one, we'll talk about components. Okay, let's see how can we create a components. So we'll just create first our own components, and then we'll explain more about the components, built-in components from React.js. So look at that part first from the sheet that you see here. I write down just plus HTML is JSX, and we already talked about class name. But let's see that so to use a component, we need to use some kind of tag. That's, if you understand HTML already, so you should know what is tag, but same way, but little bit different. And then there will be something like how you use this statement. But we need to first create a components, and we can see that which kind of components we already have. So components is basically a function, so that means a function that holds some information, you can use it. So for now I will just use a component here, and then I will see how can you separate them. So let's create a component before this app dot this app function, but you can write it after that or before that, it's okay, it's not a problem. Let's write a functional component. So I'll just write a function first, and then I will tell you like how it will be a component. First write function welcome. So you can write small letter, but look at this one, app is capital here. So if you write a small letter it will be okay, but it's recommended from the most of the React programmer to write it in capital letter when it's a component, this name. So they have some, as I said, like some standard of some rules in React.js, you need to actually follow them, it will be good. So if I write okay welcome, maybe welcome component, so any name you can give, and it's a function. So then finish the function with a bracket like this. And now what is this function is doing, maybe this function can just return a message of saying like something like this. So you write maybe h1 welcome to mai. So you just say something like this, and then let's see that. So this is some function I created. The function is returning a HTML and a content. So HTML is h1, and then there is a content, text content. So they're mixing up, and then they're sending this. So look at this line, this is actually pure JSX. How? Because if you see here, so this is JSX, because you see here we have some HTML and then some content. So this is like a mix, and you can say okay, we are just sending back some JSX content. And then when you are returning this, now the thing is, after you create something this like this, any function or something, and if you want to display this message inside your this div, that means if I go to browser, so in the browser if I come here, welcome to my fast React apps, maybe I want to display this before or after, and let's see what happens. How can I do this? So I see that here I have welcome to my fast React app, something like this. So before this paragraph maybe I can display these components. So to display components or a function, the already you created, you have to write down tag sign. So in normally we write tag like this, 2 angle bracket, and in React.js, so you can write down this tag inside, and you have to finish it. So if you remember the HTML tag, so normally HTML tag start like this and finish like this, something like this, and you see there is no error now. Or you can finish, if this is a single tag, then it should be finished with just one line, something like this. So we'll actually use the following same property from HTML concept, but here we'll just need to give the name of the component. So here my component name is welcome to components. I can write it here, angle tag is started, I should write welcome components, and then I need to finish it because this is a single tag components I just created, which is just return a function, return just a message welcome to my, and then h1. So this function is returning this results here, and nothing will happen. So if I just save it, in this case you see this already welcome to my. Now the thing is, because at the beginning we talked about something called reusability in this slide. So I said reusability, how you can reuse the code in several parts. So just look into this one. You create some function, and the function is a component. So as you said, every function in React is a some kind of components. So if you want to use it, so I copy this, just this name, and if I put it maybe after this one, maybe 2 times, 3 times. So just save it, and let's see. So now if you go there, you see welcome to my, it's repeating many times. So that means the component is actually calling function and giving you the result back. So the same thing we already, a normal JavaScript function can also do the same thing, but with React, when you do this, you so this file I created here, but this file I can actually separately I can create in another file, and then I can reuse it. So that's also possible, and then we can actually reuse it. So let's maybe just write one time, not much, because we don't need many times to use these components. Okay, so I just write okay welcome to components, and then there is just a message, and then you can see the message here. welcome to my first React apps. Now the thing is, let's separate it. So we'll just separate this component, because then we'll understand the full structure of component, because it's not it's inside here and it looks like just a normal function. But you can create a separate file here inside the source folder, or you can create another folder if you like. You can create a folder and call it components and then put everything. But for now, as a testing, you can write it here also. So let's create here and then write down maybe something similar, the same name that you have. So you can say welcome component, and then the file extension should be JS, like simple JavaScript extension. Then let's take it from here. So I cut it and then I save it, and also here I forget to copy it. Okay, now if I just copy, now I'll save this one. And now the thing is, if you already know JavaScript module, how the ES6 module or the modules work, so you see now they're saying this error. So this is a common error you normally see when you try and create a components. Line 7, welcome component is not defined. So they're saying that you're trying a JSX or JavaScript component, but it's not working, it's not there. That means you just create the component, but we need to export it, because this is the main concept of module. You create a function, after you create the function you need to export it. So here you need to write export welcome components. But you see, when I write this, there is an error, because normally when you use JavaScript or other parts of the Node.js, then we have to write exports. But in this case, if you write this will make error, because this is a React.js components. So before you create a React.js component, here you need to call you need to import the same line from React. So here we did not import it, but normally if you want to put something in here, like create a new file, you need to import React. So you need to write React from React. So from React we are just importing React, and then we need to export now. So now our codes look like this, export, but we did not write default. So if you write default in the middle, then this red error will be gone, because it's saying declaration statement expected. That means he's not recognizing my Visual Studio. So if I write default, now he is recognizing. So in this case, maybe I will just comment this line, because as you see, I just import it, but I am not using it yet, because I just create a function and export it. But this line will be helpful when you create the class component, because there is two components. One is functional, just a function that you create and you send it, so it's also component, but then there will be a class component. We'll see both of them. But let's see now what happens. So if I go in this one, if I refresh, okay, still the component is not defined, because I create it, but I need to import it here. So I need to import, and then here when I export, I said okay, default is welcome component. So this is the default name, and if I write this line, so you can see the comparison between. So the same way, so we just here import React from React, that is you installed, that is a React apps, that's why. But in this case, this component I created, so that has to be import by the same line, like import, and then I have to say what is coming to import. The default one is this, so default name importing from single quotation, and then you give the right path. So how you give the path here, ./app.css, if it's in the same folder. So now it's in the same folder, and it should be ./welcome component is here automatically. So that's good, that means it's working. And then if you save it, and then if you go there and refresh, so now you see the same message. Without refresh it will come back, because React is self-refreshing. So okay, now we can see that how can we actually separately create a function and use it. Now the thing is, okay, in this case, so I just write a component which is just a functional component. I can see this one. But how did you learn more about the components and other stuffs? you can go to JavaScript website and always go to tutorials, and then you can search for components here. Let's show first. So I have a components, just a normal components, welcome. But my question is, or you should have a question like, okay, what if I have many function, not one function? So let's write another function here, welcome components, and maybe the website footer. We just write footer component. So in the same file, it's not mandatory to put it in the same file, but if it's in the same file, what will happen? So in this case, your file is, so let's write a return also here, and then say maybe h5. Here is nice thing in the JSX syntax, if I forget one tag, and you see the error, and the error will tell me that okay, it's not complete. So JSX element h5 has no correcting closing tag, so closing tag is mandatory. If I write like this, the error is gone. But in the concept of React, so there is no error, but the thing is h5 is HTML tag. It's not that something you created. Like here, when I use welcome, that I created, and you see the color is also different, slash and then tag of closing tag. But this one I didn't this one is coming from HTML5, so it's not I'm creating something. So that means we already know h5 should start with something, and there should be some content, and h5 should be also end. So if it's ending, then it should be always like this, and there is no error. And then middle you can write something. The problem is why I am returning with h5. Can I return with just something like, okay, this is my footer, like this, maybe in a quotation, this is my footer. So here I did not write h1 or h5 or anything, no tags, just write the content with a string like this, and then I'm going to return it. And now the thing is, I export welcome, but I did not export this one. You see the color is not light up, so these things, that means you did not actually return it. But the thing is, you can actually return it also. So you can actually write down something like export, and then you write down bracket here, and then say okay, footer components. So what is happening in this case, my default one is this one, but I am also exporting another components called footer components, and then I save it, and then inside app.js I need to again write down or import this one. So I said okay, welcome component is here, and then I can actually I can write down something like here. I can write a brackets, comma, footer components, and now I need to use this one. Let's use this inside after the p tags, footer components slash ending line, and then see what happens in our. So every time you see there is actually, we can go a little bit in the terminal and see something is compiling, and then there is an error, attempting import error, welcome component is not exported from this one. This is because I now exported two files, and when I exported, I export one inside curly bracket, that means is not a default one, and another one is a default, it's outside. So here when I import them, I write down both of them in curly bracket. So what I need to do, I need to cut this one and put the footer inside, because it's something inside, and the another one outside, put a comma, and then let's see what happens. So then if you put your mouse, there is no error. That means how you export something, the same way you need to import. But you can actually, we can actually combine this and this. But first see the results. So first our result is still like this is my footer. So from welcome component I see, from the footer component I see this one. Now we can actually combine both of them. So what we can do to combine both of them, let's cut it from here, and you don't need to say anything default, because then everything will be, nothing will be default. So there will be separate components, many components you can actually export like the same way, like this. And then if you save it, so inside app.js you need to now write the same way, so like what I write previously, welcome and footer components, and then there is nothing default, but still you see the same results, so no changes in the results. So this is like how you do functional components, but the same rules importing and exporting components is the same rules for functional component or class components. But let's try a class components now. So these components, what you see is just a functional component. You have a function, and then a function is just exporting something, you are doing something. We can actually create class components separately, or we can use the same file, this file welcome component, and see something like this one I write here, but you can separate it. But maybe we'll just quickly try a class components, and then this line we need to use inside the class components. So when you try something like this, you can say something like, so we can, let's see what we can create for class component. Let's create maybe a top navigation bar or something like this. Okay, so then for this we can just write down a class components. So I can write down maybe top menu. You can write top menu components or just top menu JS. For understanding, I am writing in different names. The first one I write welcome component, second one I am writing top menu. Any name, as I said, you can write for your understanding. And then let's see this one, top menu. So in the top menu we need the first line, as I said before, import. So from React they have a default one. That default one is React from React. So when you forget this, you can write always import script, import statement like this. So it will be automatically, if you have Visual Studio, it will come, and then write here React, and then from React you can just call. So here you don't need curly brackets, because by default in React they have React. So React from REACTJS, that's what I write. You can, but it should be a small letter. You can double check when you forget it. You can just check some example, like here we have many example. We can actually maybe in the docs, yeah, in the documentation, if I go there, and so I can see the main concept, introduction JSX. Yeah, in this one already we used. So JSX, yeah, so there is a one example of function and the variables. So the code you see here, it will not be exactly like my code, because there's a little bit changes, but you can still follow them same way. So rendering elements, components, yeah. So we can see the types of components, like functional component, class components, that's we are talking here. And then see that welcome, and then they're sending something. We'll talk quickly into props. And then see this one. So the letter of this one is React, is capital letter. So you can see here, if I write a small letter, it is wrong. The first one, when I write React, is okay. So I said, okay, from React I am calling React, and then now I will create a class component. So for class component you need to write first class. It's not a function, it's just a class. So difference between class and function you can understand from JavaScript. So it's a class component which is actually going to extend some React React class. From React has something called components, this one, and he is going to extend this, and then he will return something, and we'll see the differences. So then here I have class components, which is top menu. So there will be the name of the components you are going to create, and it's going to extend from React, and inside React they have something called components. So you write these components, and then if something is a class, you have to write curly bracket and then start the class components, because we know that for class we have to, it's not a function, class is a little bit different compared to this one. You just write the function name, function sign, and then started the curly brackets, but here no parenthesis bracket, only curly brackets, because it's a class. And then here you return with just two tags and return something. In REACTJS, when you return something, so here when you return a string, is okay, but then I return something like a h1 and some content. But in class components, when you return something, you need to return it with a bracket if there is some data or something. Let's see if I just return with just a string. Maybe I say, okay, top menu, and you see when I write this, there is error. It's unexpected token constructor. So this constructor is expecting something if I even return a string, that should be inside some bracket like this, but then this is because this bracket, so until this is okay. So you return something and you just make it like a wrapping up everything into the parenthesis bracket, then you should go actually next line, and then you cannot directly send a text or a string. You need some tag, or you need to another components or something to use. So as an example, if I write here a anchor, and then so it's HTML anchor I just started, and maybe I'll finish it. So it's not working because this is a just a normal HTML, and this return is expecting something more. Okay, so this in this case, if you want to use this one, and you can see all still the structure like this. So our top menu needs some structure exactly like we see here. So before return something, we need to actually render something up. So here we just this return, if I write it, this will not work because class component actually make some kind of interface and then show it. So this is just trying to render the things. So the whole things, we know that like function component is easy in this sense. So you have function, and then you're returning some results, h1 text and a string or anything, any object you can return. But here you need to first render the information. You need to call the method render, and then inside that render method you have to return something. So you can always follow the React website and then see what is happening. So not inside, I did wrong. So it's like inside curly bracket, and then so this function is rendering, like wrapping up everything for this menu, top menu components, and then you need to write here curly bracket, and in the curly bracket you will now write down the return. So then in this return, now let's try a string, and then we say okay, top menu. So now this will work. The thing is, you need to again export the thing after. So we import the React here and then make the component. Now we will export it to use inside app.js. So then export is the same. So you said export, and then here you can write default, and default is top menu for this file, and then we'll just import it here. So for import the components whenever you create, you don't need to write import and the whole line, because in Visual Studio, if you have Visual Studio and if you are already using React, Visual Studio can easily show you something like this. Let's see that before welcome message, if I want to see the top menu without importing this top menu here, what happens? If I write here, you see my top menu is here, and I see auto import from. So when you click here, the line is already imported in line number 3. From React they can do this for us, and then you complete it with closing tags, and then it's done. Now if you just go and then you see a message top menu, so then after you render the class components and then return the structure, so then return a message or something, is working. Now what if I want to return not a string, I want to return maybe an anchor with some link. So I said okay, so this is HTML anchor, and then I write here maybe hey no, I just write here maybe my home page or something. So I said okay, slash, so you just give maybe a link, some website link. So for now we maybe give facebook.com as an example, and then I say okay, my Facebook, just a message. So this is the anchor, anchor started, and so this part is still HTML, no problem, but there will be a small problem that we'll see in a minute. So now it looks like a link. What if I now have second link? So this is for first one, and then maybe I need another link, so we can write it here, or maybe in the same line first I'll write. So you see the error anchor, and we started anchor finished, and then I write here maybe another link with href www.twitter.com. so then I write down here Twitter, link. So then what is happening, you see already there is error, but let's see in the browser what is the error. So it's saying syntax error, adjacent JSX element must be wrapped in a closing tag. Did you want a JSX fragment? So this is actually something that you need a lot of discussion, but in this case shortly you can say, okay, this is two anchors you are using. This is one anchor and this is two anchor, and this two anchor must be actually wrapped inside something, otherwise they cannot be sent like this way, they will make problem. So the short solution for this one, you have to cut it, and let's write a small, let's first try with a bracket and then put the whole thing. Still there is error, you see. So that means you have to wrap it not in a bracket, you have to wrap it in a any tags you have which can be usable. So write like this and then put it. Now it's not a problem, the error is gone, because now two anchors are wrapped inside one div. So the whole div is working like one part, one component, because components concept in this case is like this. So this is like one part from the one. If you have a buildings, as I said, it's a brick. So in the brick you have just one brick now, and it's sending two links, and there is no error because you have two links in between. Maybe for the design, in between these two links we can write something like this. So it should be look like, yeah, so my Facebook, my Twitter link. So if you click now them, and then maybe they should go, yeah, twitter.com. so then they're actually trying to go from this one, but that's different thing. We'll talk this about how you make something, some links that will work outside of this one, but not here. So look at this one. Now we create two links and then sending back the results. And what is happening, this is happening from class components. So remember, the class components always extend from React, and then it's render, and then finally inside return he is returning something, and he need starting and closing tag. But what if he has just tried to return not a div, he was to return a image like a picture or something? Then you need to write down something like this, and then there should be a source. Then the source could be anything like a image.png, so just for example, and then image is one tag, so there is no closing tag. You can make a div and put this one, or you can just write like this. So because it's closed, it's finished, then it's okay. But for anchor, we have two anchor, or if you have two images or two pictures, then you have to write again the div. So div is a common solution in this case. You put everything in a div and then just display them. But there could be more different situation problems, and that div cannot be maybe solved in sometimes when it's breaking. Like if you have a table or something, and in the table if you put some td or something, then maybe this will break. But that is in another video we'll discuss more about components and see this one. So now we see, okay, quickly we can see the functional components. Two function we created, we send them like just normal export without a default one, like all other things. Here we see default export, the class components and the differences. You can always read more on the React website and try to find out what is happening. Okay, so this is the part of components we see already, and closing tags we see the function components, class components. Let's talk about little bit about state and the props. So the state and props is some different kinds of thing. Look at this app.js. Here I have app.js, and in the app.js I have top menu, and then I have welcome components. But in this welcome components I am not sending any data. There is no data, it's totally empty. So if you look again the tutorial, so I write here use state, set state. So this will come more, and but before this is coming, we need to understand what is state. So state is basically, let's try from the one that they already have, like app. So in these apps, this is a function they created, is returning a div, something like this. And state is something, means some value. That means for this app, so this app is a components, welcome is a components, top menu is a components. So in the for the welcome components, for these components, if you write down something like a before returning, here inside there you just write, okay, variable name, you say the state. You can write anything, but let's write maybe state is I write maybe my name, so I write Arif, and then what happens, this is the name I write here, and then this is the state. So this is the name of the variable here, and now this variable name is something that I can actually so this is the state for this file. This variable name is a state inside this file, and whenever I call welcome components, so this could be the props in another file. So if I want to send this one inside app.js, then it will be the props, but here is a state. But we need to see maybe in a little bit different way. Let's do it first like other way. So whenever I call welcome components, I can actually send something, some data inside. So welcome component is a function, and there I can actually send some data. So to sending a data, you can actually write down here like something props and some properties. So you can again go here and see there they have example like this props name. This is for the class components, but rendering components, yeah. So this is for the function components. So when you send something, this is like how you receive something, but when you send something, sending something is little bit like here. This is more details, but we will not go for more details. So look at this one. You call clock, and then you get some date, and the date is coming from something called new date. And then when you receive this, so we can actually do this slowly, like here I write down. So I want to send maybe in the welcome components, so that means inside the function welcome to my, here this name will come from the components. Okay, so this name will not come manually from here. So how can I do this? So first thing, this is like sending something inside the function. In JavaScript normally we send something inside the function, we call the name of the function. If you remember in JavaScript what we write maybe welcome like a function name, and then write here some value or some arguments, and this is going back to the function receive it. So if you compare this one, welcome to components is the function name, you write the name of the component, and then you need to send some value. So in this case, if the value is maybe website name, something like this, and then if I write here website name, so I'll send it like, so it's working like attribute, and then you send something inside the attribute, and then I said okay mai.com, something like this, and then this data is sending. So this is the sending parts we did inside this one. And when you send this, now this is actually a state for this component, state for the component, and this is going back inside this function. So whenever you call this function will receive the state as a props. You can write anything here, but for understanding we can write props. So the props is coming. So in this case, after the props coming, you can easily also look into a console log and see what is actually coming inside the props, and then we'll see some results. So if I just save it, and now after the props is coming, before we display, we just see that what the console log is actually showing us. It should be an object, but first we need to see it, and then we'll see the results. So look at this one. I said website name is coming from when you call the name and then you send it, and then welcome component is receiving is like props or the value, whatever you say. You can still here you can still write state, not website name, but I give it. So this is the state you are sending, and this is state available here, and now you are sending it, and then he's receiving it. So let's see this one first. So now if I just refresh, I see still the same result because I did not use it, but I send it. So if you inspect it here and just console log, so you see here a object. This is actually the props, website name my.com. This is coming from that one what you sent. Now this is, if you look into this one, this is object. So inside object you have this one. If you want to use this one inside this line, the props, that one, then you need to write down a curly bracket, and then inside curly bracket you need to write props dot website name. So this website name is coming from exactly this one, So still you can copy. If there are spelling mistake you don't want to be done, then yeah, then if I just save it and then if I refresh, then I will not see yeah, now I see my.com, because now the thing is just sending the object. And then in line number 4 in welcome component, I can see again line number 4 in console log is showing me this. But yeah, so 2 times now I'm seeing this, but now directly I'm seeing also the object like this. Okay, so then we see the props. But sometimes when we call the props, and you see when I call the props, I see here 2 kinds of view. Line 4, both is line 4, one is showing object and then one is showing like curly bracket website name like this. Why? Because here when I receive this, I just write down like, I should actually receive this and write it like this way, because it's coming inside the object. So if you write curly bracket and then sorry, I have to, yeah, not here, here should not be done, yeah, only there. If I need to write down like this, so then I see props, and then inside props I have website name and then something like this. So it's coming the object, and object is receiving some props, and then we can see it. But yeah, that's something extra, you don't need to do this for now. Yeah, this is okay. You can just write down props and then website name, and website name is now also something coming like object, and the key value we receive it. Now this is the props. But props, so we understand the props is coming from when you call the function, it's sending something. But what is the state for welcome? Like this one has a state. No, he does not have his own state. State means the data he has inside his function is not coming from outside. So as an example here, if you have state, that means a data for him. So if I write down here state, and then state is object, I can write down okay. Again I write down object website name, and then I write down here, I write arif.com. So now look at the data. The props is giving something. Yeah, so here I need to actually write down the name of the variable, probably let, okay, state is assigned value but never used. Yeah, so now I said because if I write only state, they are showing me error. Normally in JavaScript this is not error, but in React.js you have to write it. So you can write also constant or anything, any types. Now I look at here, website name is the key and the value, the same key I am using, that's coming from the props, but they are not same actually, because this one is inside state dot website name, this one is coming inside props dot website name. It's a different thing. Okay, so now if you just write down, if you now render, if you just call the same function, what you will see? You will see not arif.com, you will see that information my.com. Yeah, so still you see my.com, and then there is a, this is a error, it's not error, it's like some kind of a warning. They're saying okay, this is not used, the state we created but we are not using. So if you want to use the state, then let's write it here, state dot website name, and then refresh it. Now you see arif.com. So but our props is still my.com, it's coming from another file. State is, so for welcome to component, for this file the state is different one, but when it's coming from another file, he's receiving the same value you are sending, but now he's not updating. For this you can actually update your state. So what you can do, you can actually for updating a state, you can use something that we write here in the sheet. We write down here set a state. So set a state means you can actually update whatever is coming, or you don't need to update, you can directly here, if I write props.website name, it is working, no problem. But sometimes I can actually update some of my state by writing something like, there we can actually update by this way. So in this case this state is coming, and you can still, if you write it here like okay, whatever it is, and then default one, and then you want to actually update this one, the default information that you received, so you can actually update this. But look at this one. So this is something very simple. They have some data, but if you go down, but yeah, this is a class, like how we can convert into a class components, more details you can see. For updating a state, that will be something more we will discuss about components, and then we'll actually see how we can update a state and change the props. But for now we can see that okay, so we can send anything, so there is no limitation. You can send any value, any attributes, and then data is going, and then this component is receiving this one. Normally you will use a state not to just only update the data. You can use the state like okay, for the own data means like his own data, or maybe like okay, state is maybe like someone's name, so you can write down. So it is object, you can write anything here, and then you can say welcome to this website made by, and then you write here state dot website name. Sorry, not website name, it should be actually name, and then you should see the whole message. So one is coming from the another link, welcome to arif.com made by Arif. So let's look into this one. Now they are not using they're using only state, so props is not using, but yeah, if you write here props, then it should be my.com, so it's not the same thing. So that is the basic concept, how the components are working without any error or any problems. And if you want to update, like by default I have this state, now I want to update the data, you can easily also write here shortly state equal to, so not like this, state dot, and then you write okay, state dot website name will be props dot website name. If I do this, then again I don't write here, so I say okay, the state is like this, and now if I go there, you see now it's automatically updating. But in some cases, because some cases you also need to display this value, but when user click or user do something or do some changes, this state will change. It's called updating the state, but that we will see later. But now we need to just see that okay, how state and props they are working and what is them as a basics. Now look into our last part, like event handler. So event handler is how you actually handle the function. So that means I have a component here, welcome, and I have a state, some data here, and I have a footer, there I have a class components. So this kind of value I have. For the class component we didn't write any state, so if you write a state in for the class component, let's write it here. So if you write down let state, and then we write down so here is like name, like site name. So in this case site name is maybe Facebook, so I write here Facebook, and that means actually I'm changing this line, so I write here state. So for class component, if you write only a state, that will be a problem. You need to write this state dot site name. And then I just, yeah, so you don't also need to, state is not defined, yeah, maybe I write it in not the correct place. Just let me compare quickly. So if I compare, state should be, yeah, for class component a state should be actually inside the, so it's a little bit it's a little bit different. So you need a constructor, class constructor, and then you need to write it there. So in this case I don't write a constructor, but I write the state, so this line is okay. So before the render you need a function called constructor, and the constructor by default you can send something like a props, or you don't need to send anything. Here you can write down the state. So if I write the state inside this one, then this state is now available inside the constructor like this. So here I need to write before state, I actually need to write this dot state, then this state is available and I can save it. So then you see there is no error, this is not allowed before super. Okay, so then because here I need to write super constructor. And what is super? Super is like if you this class constructor you have connection with maybe app.js, like top menu has a connection with app.js, and super means this one. But we'll discuss more details about super and this in the components class, not this one. So you can see now, and now if you refresh, everything seems okay, no error. But now let's, because I write down something like facebook.com, and then I'm using the name here, and then look at the name of the Facebook, now a small letter. So this is coming from that line, the state. Now the thing is, when you call top menu, exactly like how you use the welcome component, so here you can also send some data. So you said, okay, I'm going to send the site name, which is a props. So you write down, maybe we'll just write down now this time google.com, and then this component is coming here. So in the class components, coming here in the class component, how it will look like, it will be a props. Inside the constructor you need to send it. So the props will receive in the constructor is coming from super. So 2 times you have to write, and then after you receive this you can actually now update this. So for updating that part you can actually do something like, there is a many way to update this. So basically when the props is coming, you can update into this line, or you can also update it from outside. Like example, we'll write something strange, like here if I write down a button, so a button, and then I write down on click, so button on click, and then I'll write down a function like update site name. So it's a function, write down the name of the function, okay, and then finish it. So click to update. What will happen whenever you click this function, they should actually update something for you. But why did I write this function? So I need to actually write this function. This is called actually handler, the last part we have, you can find it here. You can handling event. So this part if you click and you see, okay, button on click, some function name, activate laser they're saying, and then whenever you click this activate laser, so I write like this way, it's HTML way, but React way is this. So then what will happen, like this way when you write it's HTML way, but we'll just see the what is the happening, and then we'll make it in a React way. And then this function you need to create inside any part of your code. It could be in a class component. So in the class component it should be outside of the constructor, but outside of render, and you need to also bind it. So bind it, you don't need bind because we can use arrow function in this case, so then we don't need to bind it. But why, with that details we also talk later in another video in the components. So let's see this one. So if I say, okay, I create a function and the name of the function is, let me minimize it a little bit, update site name. This is the name of the function, and the function is arrow function. Yeah, so you don't need like constant or late in this case in React.js. That's a good thing, because normally when you write a function you give this value, but here you don't need it. And then here inside this function, and after you create the function, our case will write down like this dot set states is a function from the React.js which can actually update the state for you. And you see set state is taking some string or symbol or number, and then he is actually calling back something. So inside there you just need to send something. So we'll just send the state we created on the top, this state, right? So we'll just create the state, and then arrow function started, and then a callback started. There we'll actually update our state. So there you can write down that we'll use the same concept like this one. So they did not update anything, they just write down okay is. So this is, look at this one, is toggle in actually coming from that function. So you just need the variable name. In this case I have site name, I call the site name, I put it the site name. After I put the site name, and now I can actually update it by using props. So when I write this dot props, and then data is actually coming from this one, and then he's going to, so this data is actually coming inside, and for the state they will actually change it. Let's save it and then see the error first. Okay, so first thing is expected an assignment to the function call, and props is not defined. So yeah, the first thing is when I call this one here, I need to call it like a curly bracket, not like this. Update site name. So now if I refresh, yeah, so then props is not defined in line number 13 and expect assignment. Okay, so line number 13 I have some problem, but it's not actually showing me the correct line. So I create a function and update. Okay, let's see how can we actually update and see the event handler. So event handler is basically a function. Let's create a function and say this is a handler, like event handler. So event handler means just a function, so you can write down any name. You can say update name. So we are going to update the name of the function. We will use arrow function because for this case arrow function is the best one. If you write arrow function, then you don't need to actually write something inside this part like binding. So binding is a process how you have to recreate an event or function, you have to use it. So update name, that one I will use. Like here we have already site name is, if you look into the top, site name is Facebook, but from this one I am sending google.com. So now here google.com will be update. So basically you will see facebook.com. When you click, then it will be google.com. So how is happening? Let's make a button and then write on click event, and in the on click event we will now write down our name of the function that we created here. So in class component, in the class component you have to write down this dot update name, and then they will be actually connected with this one. This function is this dot update name is now connected with this name, and when I click here, then this Facebook, the site name from the state will be changed to the new updated props name. So what you have to do for updates, you need to write here, just this dot set state function from REACTJS, and then inside the function you need a callback. So you can write a state or callback. So let's write maybe state. Normally in this case state I don't need because I'm not doing anything with the state. What I'm doing, I'm just going on the state. So in the state I have something that I'll return finally, but before I return I'll just write down two brackets, and then inside there I will do something like some updates. So what I'm going to update, the site name. Site name is going to update from my props, these dot props, and then it should be site name from this one. Yeah, so then yeah, I write it wrong because so this should be not just parenthesis, because this return needed something curly bracket. Okay, so then this curly bracket, because this is actually some way how you actually update the structure, so it should be curly bracket, and then this props means this is a class component. So if it's not class component, you don't need to write this. Props is coming and updating site name. Whenever you click, it's going to update this and you display it. So in this case actually state is not necessary. If I don't write it, it should be empty. So whenever you click, and then empty arrow function will return the updated result, and you see facebook.com. Let's see that event. So why we see the event in handler, you can see here we have an on click event, and you click here and then it's happening. But let's see the output. So if I refresh now and I click Facebook, Facebook, if I click, nothing will happen. I will click the button and the Facebook will be google.com. You see it changes now google.com, and this is because of this update, set update function. So it's actually updating the state that you have. So anything you can actually update by this one, and this is called event handler. Okay, so that is few basics we have. There are something called more things we didn't discuss, like use a state. So use a state is, that means any state you can at the beginning giving some value when you create the state here. So you can create a value and do something that is not actually important in this for the basics. So you'll talk this later. So until now, what we see, that we see actually app.js, how to use JSX concept here, and how to use component, functional components. We see functional components here, and then we see how to send a state and create a state and update them. So that will be our basics. Our next video will actually talk about more about components and play with the components, state and props, and see more details. Thank you.